I don't like being average. I like to stand out. But how am I supposed to know if I stand out if I don't know anything about any other Bloxburg players? Which is why I put out a survey to find out about you guys. And by the end of this video, we'll find out if you're average, but more importantly, if I'm average. Because really, I did this for me. Welcome to Bloxburg census. So this is the survey. If you remember doing something like this in the past, then congratulations, your results are in this video. Although the one that you did was probably blue. Well, actually, most definitely blue. The reason I just made it brown is so that it matched the PowerPoint. That's the only reason. And, oh yeah, before we get started, subscribe. So first I asked people how old they are, which I already had a guess because most people who watch my videos are like middle schoolers, 11 to 13 year olds. Boy, was I wrong, because not only is 11 to 13 year olds not first, they're not second, they are third. Because half of my responses were from Reddit, which most people who use Reddit are teenagers. This makes sense for the purpose of my form. And for gender, Bloxburg is predominantly a female game. This time, I was right. And then we have 4.2% non-binary and then 3.8% prefer not to say. Next, I asked every pronouns. A lot of she, hers, and he, hims, which obviously is expected. Sexual orientation. A lot of straights, which statistically speaking is also quite expected. More bis than I was expecting, because only 4% of the world is bi. Maybe bis and gamers, there is a correlation. Gamers are more likely to be bi. And then I asked you guys where you guys are from. Reasonably so. A lot of people are from US and UK. But also, on top of that, there is 100+ other countries. But actually, I'm one step ahead of you. There is no way I'm just gonna let US and UK take over my presentation. I made a different graph. This graph is the 2nd to 19th most popular countries of the people who did my form. And obviously, the largest chunk is UK, and then Canada 2nd, Australia 3rd, which makes sense because these are all English-speaking countries. Because most of the people said they're from US, I asked people what state they're from. A lot from California. What is absolutely crazy, just bonkers to me, is how there's more Georgians than New Yorkers. Who lives in Georgia? What is in Georgia? Like, if you're living in Georgia, might as well live in Florida. While doing this, I also researched the most populated states. And number 1, we have California, which makes sense because California's first. Number 2 most populated is Texas, which Texas is 2nd. Number 3 is Florida. Florida's 3rd. We're on a streak right now. Number 4, however, is not Georgia. Obviously, who lives in Georgia? And what's crazy to me, Illinois is 6. Illinois in my chart is not all the way until down here. So I don't know where all the Illinois people are, but you're not representing your state very well. And for counting all these states, and you're wondering to yourself, this is not 50 states. We're missing some states. Where's my state? Out of a whopping 350 people, not one soul decides that they want to live in Delaware, Montana, Oklahoma, Wyoming, and DC. And if you're watching this video and you live in these 4 states, I hope that you move out, or at least want to move out. Because look, I've never been to these 4 states, but I know nothing is there because I don't want to go. So now that we have the demographics out of the way, now we ask people about Bloxburg. Number 1, I asked, do you play Bloxburg? Just to make sure. And most of you did in fact say yes. However, 1% of you said no. And 1% of you said Bloxburg's stupid. How long have you been playing Bloxburg? Bloxburg has been public for a wonderful 8 years, but most people have only been playing Bloxburg for 2 to 4. To be fair, before Bloxburg went free, this number would probably been even lower. And so now that we know how long people have been playing Bloxburg, I asked how long they spend on Bloxburg weekly. And a lot of people were quite reasonable with their answers. I'm talking the 1 to 3 hours, the 4 to 6 hours, the 7 to 10+ hours. You're probably builders, because building takes a long time. And so people spend hours on Bloxburg. But what are they spending it on? This is the distribution of time. How much of your time are you spending on building, role-playing, and working? And so for building, most people spend 60 to 70% of the time building. Which, when I say most people, I mean, 16%. And very little people are not spending much time building. But also, very little people are spending 90 to 100% of the time building. If you're building, you need money. So how much time are you spending working? Clearly not much. Only 11 to 40%. And to the 18% of you is spending 90 to 100% of the time working. Why? What are you doing with your money? You're gonna grow up to be a workaholic, which is no good. Money is great, but family and life is also great. So you gotta sort things out. And let's look at the role players. 65% of you spend 0 to 10% role playing, which I am also very proudly a part of this 0 to 10% role playing. So because a lot of people build, what do you build? 90% of people say that they build residential, and everything else is just kind of hanging out down here. Commercial buildings, that is like the restaurants, the cafes, the salons, like anything that has customers, that's a commercial building. Multiple buildings, that's like towns, neighborhoods, townhouses. Outdoor public places, that is like parks and just Parks. I can't think of anything else, but you know what I mean, like parks. Custom builds, that is like the airplanes and the private jets and the boats and the ships and the cruises. Well, this is the most important one because this talks about the money and the blocks boxes. There's a lot of variation in Bloxburg cash. And then 20% of you just could not care less, couldn't even make a guess about what kind of money they have. Bloxburg. This is also quite variable. To the 41 of you that have over 5,000 Bloxburg, where are you getting this from? Because Bloxburg is not easy to get, so where are you getting this? Unless you're just like in every single event. So now that we know how much money people have, let's look at their overall job level experience. The second most popular answer is that you guys have no clue. You guys clearly care about money. My most viewed video on my channel is about making money. There is no way that you guys have no clue what your job level is. If a lot of us are spending this much time building, how many plots we got? Not a lot. 2 to 4. I built so much, but I also only have 4 plots. Game passes. This kind of blew my mind. I don't think that the results on this form is representative of what Game Pass most Bloxburg players actually have, because I just don't believe that every single Game Pass has over 50% of players that has bought it. But I do think that the most popular Game Pass is multiple floors because of the amount of builders there are. I can't watch basement over ex-employee. There's no way. Oh, I guess maybe to like trap people. 68% of you are just playing Bloxburg verbatim. And with that, I also calculated how many Game Passes people have. Most people got 8 Game Passes. Again, I don't think that if 40% of people in all of Bloxburg actually have all 8 Game Passes, that would be ridiculous. In the context of this form, it obviously is true because a lot of people doing my form are hardcore fans. And then it just kind of goes down the list except for 0, which is all the way up here. And then I asked people if they owned a neighborhood. Most people do not own a neighborhood. For context, most people who did this form did it before the neighborhood update where you can browse through neighborhoods and turn on voice chat and that kind of stuff. I also asked people if they own the color wheel. Most people, in fact, do. 60% of it. And there's 46 of you who are just a little behind. I'm not gonna say dumb, even though I did write it in the form. A little behind, a little slow. Subscriptions. I'm talking Bloxburg subscriptions. Like the ones that give you a certain amount of money and Bloxburg each month. 97% of you know how to use your money because you do not have subscriptions. To the 18 of you or anyone else here who has bought the currency pack, why did you buy it? I'm not judging. I'm just out of curiosity. Why did you buy it? Like, what made you buy it? Once in a while, Bloxburg will have events like the Elf Hunt. So how often do you participate? Most people, sometimes. Most people are participating in some kind of events, which is nice. So you know the little name tags on top of your head? Yeah, those. Most people have early Bloxburger or premium name tag. But let's look all the way at the bottom. Basically no one wants to be a child, grandparent, parent, or relative, which these are all roleplay related name tags. And as we established, there's not a whole lot of roleplay. And you're probably looking at the very, very bottom and you're like, DAMCC, what the heck is that? D stands for developer, A stands for admin, M stands for moderator, C stands for contributor, and the other C stands for content creator. These are exclusive ones. Not everyone has access to these name tags, and that's why that's in the bottom, and that's why not many people have them. I'm surprised that name tags off is the 4th most popular answer, because by default, name tags are on. So many people decided they care about name tags that much, or I guess they don't care about name tags that much, that they have to go manually to settings to turn it on. And then I asked people to rate each job, which you probably already know which jobs are the top 2. Delivery person and fast food worker. This is a little surprising because I thought that fast food worker would rate higher than delivery person. I personally like the fast food worker more because number 1, there's more things to do, but also the entire job, like the way you do the job is just more satisfying than delivery person. It makes me happier. But what doesn't make me happy is the hairdresser. Oh my gosh, I 100% agree. I hate the hairdresser job. I also hate mechanic. At this point, I don't remember really what the job is because I haven't done it so long, but whatever it is, I just remember hating it. So it can't be good. How much do you care about skills? Between 3, 4, and 5s. There's more 3, 4, 5s than there is 1 and 2s. But the average rating for how much people care for skills, 3.29 out of 5. So right slap down the middle, pretty much. Who do you guys like watching other than me? Because I know a lot of people who are my viewers will just try to please me and say Tessilyn, which I don't. If you like me and if I'm your favorite content creator, I am so honored. But statistically, for most people, I am not. And remember, I also posted this form on Reddit. People on Reddit, when they got this question, I saw a lot of responses were like, I don't know who you are, but my favorite is blah, blah, blah. Or like, Definitely not Tessilyn, but it's blah blah blah. With that being said, let's see who your favorite content creators are. Alaska Violet, number 1, which Alaska Violet posts pretty much every day. Peter Bread, number 2, he also posts a ton. And then number 3 is Don't Watch. A lot of you just don't watch Bloxburg content creators. I want to clarify this. Blogs Hub and PLT. PLT is Panda Lemon Tart. I just shortened it because I didn't have space. I also asked you guys for confession. We shall find out if you are average. So here's how it's gonna work. So, oh yeah. First of all, subscribe. That's how it's gonna work first. And so the next page has the results for each question. So this is how you're gonna calculate your average. If your answer is within this big box, because this big box is gonna have whatever the average is, then you get 1 point. If your answer is within the pretty average range, so this is gonna have a tiny range around the average, then you get 0.75 points. If your answer falls around the kind of average range, so this is gonna be a bigger range around the average, then you get 0.5 points. If your answer does not fit in any of these categories, then you get a big fat 0. There's also going to be results that look like this, where it's going to be just one box. If you fit in that box, then you get 1 point. If you do not categorize yourself as within whatever that box says, then you get 0 points. I know this all sounds really confusing. Once we get to the next page and we have the actual numbers, it'll make a lot more sense. But basically, the total of all of these numbers is 38 points. So if you happen to get 38 out of 38, you are like the most average person average can possibly get. Like, you might even be unique at this point because of how average you are. For the demographics, the average age of everyone who did this form is 14.5 years old. So if you are exactly 14 and a half years old, then you get 1 point. If you're within 13.7 years old to 15.3 years old, then you get 0.75 points. If you're kind of average, so anywhere between 13 to 16 years old, then you get 0.5 points. For the gender, most people are female. So if you are a female, then you get 1 point. If you are a male, you get 0 points. I hate to break it to all the males out there. That's just what the statistics are. If your pronouns are she, her, you also get 1 point. If it's anything else, I hate to break it to you, but you get a big fat 0. If your sexual orientation is straight, then you get 1 point. I don't make the rules. I just deliver them. If you are from the country of the United States, then you get 1 point. And if you live in the country of the United States, and you're from the states of California, you get 1 point. If you're from Texas or Florida, you get 0.75 points. If you're from Georgia or New York, you get 0.5 points. Okay, moving on. Do you play? If you play Bloxburg, which should be all of you because you're watching this video, then good for you. You get a free 1 point. If you have played Bloxburg for exactly 4.2 years, which I'm gonna calculate the month for you, so you don't have to do it. Just give me a second. Okay, I did the calculations. If you have played Bloxburg for 4 years and 2 months or 3 months, then you get 1 point here. If you're any of these other ranges, then you get 0.75 or 0.5 points. If you spend an average of around 3.6 hours a week playing Bloxburg, then you get 1 point. Everything else, you know how this works. Now for time distribution, this is like the percentage of time you spent doing each thing in Bloxburg. 56%. Okay, this is like a weird average. If you spent around 32% of your time working, give yourself a point. If you spend around 10% role playing, then give yourself a point. It's like, obviously it's hard to calculate these. If you think you're spending somewhere between, let's say, 30 to 35% working, then I'd say that you can give yourself 1 point. Your building habits. I don't know how to word this. In hindsight, building habits sounds a tiny bit weird. But if your building habits say that you build mostly residentials, or at least you build residential, then you give yourself 1 point. And if you don't build residentials, if you build commercial buildings, you get 0.75 points. If you don't build residentials or commercial buildings, but you do in fact build multiple buildings, remember that is like the towns and the, that's all I can think of right now, the towns, then you get 0.5 points. If you have exactly $776,350 in Bloxburg right now, you get a full point. I feel like I should have made this a range. If you're around that, I'd say give yourself a point. But if you're around that but closer to these numbers, then give yourself 0.75 points. Same with Bloxbucks. If you're somewhere around 1,181 Bloxbucks, I'd say give yourself a point. If your overall job level experience is exactly 60, then you get 1 point. If you have no clue what your job level is, then you give yourself 0.75 points. Otherwise, or not otherwise, if you're between 54 to 66 job level, then you get 0.5 points. If you have a total of 4 plots on your account, then you get 1 point. For game passes, if you have the multiple for game pass, then you get yourself 1 point. If you don't have the multiple for game pass, but you do in fact have advanced placing, or basement, the commas or. If you have either of these, then you get 0.75. And if you don't have multiple floors, advanced placing, or basement, but you have excellent employee or large plot, then you get 0.5 points. If you have a total game pass of somewhere between 5 to 6, see this one I was smart. See this one I did a range. I don't know what I was thinking. So you have 5 to 6, you get 1 point, and you know how the rest works. Okay. And if you do not own a neighborhood, because most people don't, you get 1 point. If you do in fact own a neighborhood, you get no points. I feel like I'm doing a game show. If you in fact own the color wheel, then you get 1 big point. Well, I'm not saying this one's like bigger than the other ones, but you get 1 point. If you do not own any of Bloxburg descriptions, you get 1 point. If you consider yourself as someone who sometimes participate in events, you get 1 point. For the name tags, if you have the little name tag on top of your head that says Early Bloxburger, you get 1 point. This might be where your points go down because people are very different about their job rating. Delivery person, most people rate it a 4 out of 5. There's only 0.75s for this one. There's no 0.5s for this one because 0.5 is just like the whole entire scale. So if you rate delivery person a 4, then you get 1 point. If you rate it between a 3 to a 5 but not a 4, so a 3 or a 5, then you get 0.75, and other than that you get no points. And then everything else, if you care for skills, a total of 3 out of 5 stars, or like ratings, or whatever you want to call it, then you get 1 point. If you're 2 to 4, then you get 0.75 points. If your favorite content creator is Alaska Violet, then you get 1 point. If you like pita bread, but you don't watch Alaska Violet. So that like, if this is only if this doesn't apply to you. So if you don't watch Alaska Violet, but you do watch pita bread, then you get 0.75. If you do not watch Bloxburg content creators, then you also get 0.75 points. I hope you're calculating, because now I'm gonna need you to comment your average in a score. And then I'm gonna do mine so that you get to know my average in a score. I care about your average score because I wanna know how I compare to you. Before we get to that, I look through all 741 responses. The most average person to do my form got a total of 28.25 out of 38 points. But really, the most important part is here. Am I average? I'm between 13 to 16 years old, unfortunately. I don't want to be average, which in a month I won't be. I'll be 17 in a month. I am in fact female. My pronouns are she, her, and I am in fact straight. I am from the country of the United States. For my state, I'm not going to say what state I live in, but I am in fact born in New York, so that gives me at least 0.5 points. Okay, I do in fact play Bloxburg. Okay, this one's a fun one because I calculated how long I've been playing Bloxburg, and I thought it was around this range. I thought it was around 4 years, but I did the calculations and it is 4.8 years. I know, 4.8 years. We're just out of that kind of average range. Oh, so close. But the important thing is that I'm not kind of average, which means I don't get a point here. Woo for me. So I don't know how much time I spent on Bloxburg. I know I spent a lot of time thinking about Bloxburg because I make Bloxburg content, but within Bloxburg, it could be 0, but I'm thinking about Bloxburg a lot, or it could be like 24 because I'm built. Time distributions. I said I'm not any of these because I spent most of my time building. You guys donate a lot of money to me, so I don't have to work. I'm very grateful. And then I don't really play at all, so that's like 0. For building habits, I do in fact build residentials. I also build commercial buildings. I don't usually build multiple buildings, but I do build residentials, so that gives me 1 point. And I have, okay, so I'm one of those people. I don't know exactly how much Bloxburg cash I have, but I know it's within 2.7 million and 3.1 million. And Bloxbucks, I think I have 3,000, so that also does not put me in the range, which is good. Job level, I am level 93 or 94, somewhere there, so not within that range, and I have a total of 4 plots, which puts me right down, smack down in the average, unfortunately. I do in fact have multiple floors, and I have all game passes, which puts me kind of average. I do in fact own a neighborhood, so I get no point there. I do own the color wheel, and I do not own any subscriptions, so that also gives me 1 point. I sometimes participate in events, and I do not use any of those name tags. I'm usually in my neighborhood, which means I'm using that neighborhood host name tag. For job ratings, I got a lot of 0.75 on these. Cashier, oh my gosh, I rate that a 1. I have no clue how to do that job. Fisherman, that is a 2. Woodcutter, that is a 1 for me. It is repetitive and boring, and I don't like it. Mechanic is a 1, and hairdresser is a 1. Might as well be a 0. It's like a 0.5. My care for skills. I'd say my care for skills is a 4 because there's one point in my life a couple months ago, or probably a year ago at this point, where I grinded skills so hard. And as for content creators, I'd say I don't really watch Bloxburg content. Well, okay, so I watch a little bit of everyone, so I don't really know who's my favorite. So now that we know my numbers, and I'm aiming for a low here. I do not want to be average. I'm aiming for 0, but obviously it's not 0. My average score is 23.38. 23 points too high. Am I really that average? This is so sad. I'm gonna need you to comment your average score so that I know that 23 is hopefully a low score. So I really hope so. I want to be different. Okay, speaking of difference, these are the differences I'm gonna make in the future. Click here to subscribe, then click here to find out who is better, Coffee Stain or Coeptus. See you there.